Okay, because you know how like there's this thing that's been going on, like it's not even a recent thing. It's been happening for like years and years and years now. And what we've started doing is we have got this like weird debate going on about sort of like in like video games is like apparently the most political thing in the fucking world. For some reason, and it's just been that way since like slowly and steadily since 2014. And we hit this point where, like I say, the mainstream narrative now is that Gamergate was a movement that was designed to recruit people to the alt-right, but then also that was gonna get Trump in the White House, and it was funded by Russia. Am I quiet still, or is it just this guy? As I can keep fucking with the gain. So it's all fine. It's all fine. All right, okay. So for some reason, ever since then, video games has just been the most political stuff ever. And there's an expectation that you will include video games. You will include like a political stance in your content at all times, and if you don't, that is in itself making a political statement. Apparently, I find the argument quite tired and stupid when people say, "Oh, don't put politics in my video games," and then like it'll be like fucking Deus Ex, which is like an inherently political game. Like you can't not have the politics in it. Like that is like one of the wokest fucking games of all time, where like you literally have a dude give you a fucking speech halfway through about, haven't you noticed how corporations don't pay taxes anymore? And it's like, shit, man, you fucking red pilling me right now in this video game. But so anyway, you have this weird sort of thing now where developers are just so bored of fucking getting hammered by the mainstream press that they just say, "Oh, our game isn't political." You have the Division 2, Tom Clancy, like it's an inherently political game. It's set in fucking Washington after the fall of a government. I mean, the theme is political. And yeah, fucking people are too scared to say, "Oh, my fucking game includes elements of politics," because you'll just never hear the end of it. But there's an even dumber argument than saying my game that is political isn't political, and that is the argument that if there is somebody unpleasant in your game, say for example in Counter-Strike we have terrorists. The idea that because that's in the game, it will somehow normalize real terrorists. And I've heard this so fucking much from so many people. And there's been this real weird kind of pushback on like elements of history being put in games. Like, for example, there was this thing that happened a few years ago. I think we covered it on the show. When Apple decided that they wanted to like just eradicate the Confederate flag, which meant that every game that you could get through Apple that play on your iPad or your iPhone, that was like a Civil War reenactment where you could play as, the Union, the Confederacy, which was a perfectly normal thing. I used to play this game on fucking Amiga when I was a kid called North and South. And it was a bunch of mini games, all connected into a campaign. And I played a lot. I was fascinated with the American Civil War, actually, because as a Brit, it didn't affect me. It had no impact on my history. But it seemed like really, like civil wars are sort of inherently interesting, aren't they? Like, so I mean, and I knew all about the English Civil War that we'd had. So anyway. Now, if you wanted to play through the Apple Store one of these games, like Gettysburg or whatever, you can't, because the content is banned because it's got a Confederate flag in. And it's just like, there is no... By saying, this thing happened in history, and here is a simulation or a game that is based around that time period of this thing that really happened, we're not going to get the secession of the states again. We're not bringing back the Confederacy. It's it's crazy. But they removed it, and this is part of an ongoing thing where it's like they try and portray the content in the games. Like, for example, I play a lot of Paradox games. There's Paradox games called Hearts of Iron, and obviously it's set in World War II, and obviously you can play as fucking Nazi Germany in it, right? And you can win as And I thought to myself, like, how triggering would it be if I was to sit down and stream Hearts of Iron with me playing as Nazi Germany? And Jesus, like, just think about how bad that would be in this day and age. And it's not bad at all. It doesn't mean, you would like to go back in time and have them win. It's just a fucking game, and there is no broader thought process that needs to go into it. But anyway, I saw the dumbest articulation of this idea that's been sort of like burgeoning under the surface, and it came from extra credits. And spoiler, I don't like extra credits. I've never really liked them. Hang on, sorry, I just realized it's a little bit dark over here. Oh no, that's better. No, that's actually giving me flare now. I don't like extra credits. I haven't for a while, but I don't like them for different reasons. I've got personal reasons not to like them, and that is that, there was that whole fucking thing where they accused Total Biscuit of something he didn't do. They were at some fucking...
You're not even a real journalism. That's right.
Speaking thing where they basically... someone asked them, what do you think about Gamergate? Because, of course, everything goes back to Gamergate.
You're not even a real journalism.
And they fucking said, well, the leaders of Gamergate include Total Biscuit, which is, like, just ridiculous. Because, I mean, first of all, the idea that this myth, it's not a myth, it's a fucking lie, is the word for it, where it keeps being pushed that it was an organized movement with leaders and all, it's bullshit. And Total Biscuit, John, he didn't even ever want to fucking say the word because we all got told. Listen, phrases you can no longer use. You can't say Gamergate. I mean, I had this conversation. When I was at the Daily Dot, I think it was. And people came at me and they were like, Richard, like, you got to be really careful because you're saying that you actually see Gamergate as a consumer-driven movement and people pushing for ethics in journalism, not as a harassment movement. And I was like, well, yeah, because there's no evidence to say that it's a movement of people harassing others. Like, everyone gets harassed every day on the internet for everything. But we all, like, we're charitable to everyone else, and we say don't let the lunatic fringe sort of drive the narrative about the majority of people. But we're not doing it here because journalists are butthurt, and every time journalists get butthurt, they close ranks. And they fucking tell lies and they abuse their platforms, and I think that's disgusting. And I'm not going to pretend that that's not what's happening. So we all got told, you can't use the phrase ethics in journalism anymore. That's off. Like if you even use this phrase in your writing, an editor will swoop in and remove it because it's a loaded phrase. It's code for harassment. And you can't say Gamergate. I mean, again, anyone who knows my history knows that the reason I left the Daily Dot was because literally one of the editors there sat down and I wrote something and just included the phrase Gamergate, and the rule for the editors there was every time Gamergate was mentioned, it had to have the suffix Gamergate, a harassment campaign, trademark. It was like every time, and I'm like, but I don't think that. And I'm not putting that, I am not putting that in my work because I don't believe that. I see no evidence of that, and I want my work to be factual. But that's what it was. So that was why I decided to leave the Daily Dot, because they were absolutely adamant that it had to be framed that way. So anyway, the idea that John had anything to do with Gamergate beyond just saying, games journalism does have a problem, and that's kind of why I exist. And for that reason alone, he's been called a harasser. His memory is denigrated to this day. His wife is harassed by these journalists because of this shit. His widow, I should say. And I think it's fucking appalling. I think it's absolutely appalling. And Extra Credits were one of these groups that pushed this bullshit about John being a leader of Gamergate. And they even accused him of taking tens of thousands of dollars. I think the specific number was 20,000 to promote a game on his channel. And what he did was he took some money, and it was nowhere near 20,000. It was closer to 5, and it was a disclosed promotion. So there's no, that isn't a violation of ethics. The whole point is what these journalists were doing is they weren't disclosing shit. John did. So it was ridiculous. I might pull up the video at some point. But, yeah, it was in that moment, I was just like, you know what, there's something malevolent there, I think. There's something really malevolent when what you do is you basically, to deflect from very real problems, because they might encroach a little bit on, your friends or whatever. So you abuse a platform, and then under the guise of saying, no, here's the real problems, you lie to obfuscate what's really going on. I think that is malevolent. I think that is malevolent. I think it's unforgivable.
Thanks as always for the content.
No worries, Mr. Miller.
Hope to hear about your new project soon.
You perhaps you shall. So anyway, you know, that's just all to set it up, basically, to say that I fucking don't like Extra Credits. I think they're garbage. But this video is the worst thing they've ever put out. It is so shockingly dumb that when I watched it, like, I thought it was someone doing a parody of Extra Credits. Like, I had to keep checking, like, is this real? Like, is this on the YouTube channel? Because, again, they take this idea that if you play as a terrorist or anyone unpalatable, obviously Nazi's the go-to word, because, you know, you got all these mentally ill people out there who think there's Nazis everywhere. And there's not. There's just simply not. But we have to believe it. Otherwise, the last 3 years have all sort of been a waste, haven't they? So, if you play as a Nazi in a World War II game, I mean, we've already got to the point where they don't show swastikas anymore. It's like, it's so unbelievable. If we continue on the trajectory we're on, like, we just won't be able to talk about World War II. We won't be able to make movies about World War II, and unless it's like some fucking revisionist fantasy component, like, you know, Inglourious Bastards or whatever. Like, that'll be it, because it's too problematic, apparently, to talk about the things that really happened. And you can't make video games are art, so, but you can't make art about this particular thing, about this particular type of content. So, anyway, I'll put you through this video, because I had to go through it, so you cunts can.
There you are.
Right, and again, just for audio levels, let me know if this is too quiet or whatever, and I'll try and fuck around with it.
Playing the PvP in your World War II shooter, and all of a sudden, there you are, playing the PvP in your World War II shooter, and all of a sudden, you're a Nazi. You didn't ask for this. You didn't choose this. Yet
Right,
there it is.
it's slightly low, isn't it? Okay, let me... How the fuck can I turn this up? All right, let's try that.
And it's treated no differently than playing a British soldier. This is bad on so many levels. No one should ever have a random chance of
You're
fighting
not even
for
a
the
real
Nazis.
journalism. That's right.
So, again, initially, I don't understand how you can just sort of make this statement. No one should ever have a random chance of playing for the Nazis. So the problem with this, right off the bat, is you are equating an in-game like skin aside a team, effectively just a color, right? With having some sort of real connection to modern
You're not even a real journalism.
politics, neo-Nazism. Right. It's completely absurd. I feel like I have to explain this, especially to Americans. You know, I hate to say it,
You're not even a real journalism.
but as Americans are like, they're so fucked up with their own internalized guilt. about their entire fucking history, about, you know, the fucking slavery, and then, you know, fucking all the other stuff that were the Native Americans before that. The fact that they sort of dilly-dallied on World War II, and, you know, and it's crazy, and you fucking, you have to listen to these fucking kids that probably don't even learn about World War II in school. I can't imagine, because it was primarily a European conflict. I mean, let's just be fucking real about that. You know, there's stuff there's cultural references from the UK that would mean nothing to an American about the Blitz, you know, because we got fucking bombed by the Nazis, by the way. They won't know what a dad's army was, about how literally we had the home front, which was a bunch of fucking doddery old men who couldn't go to war but were ready. You know, they won't know about shit like this. And yet I have to fucking listen endlessly. You know, my grandfather was a World War II war hero who was so traumatized by the war he didn't claim his medals while he was alive, and he forbid his family to do so. He didn't even want the medals in the house. He felt they were tarnished. He'd done things that had irreparably changed him. You know, he killed multiple people up close and personal. He was in the Navy, so, you know, blowing people up with torpedoes and stuff. And and I've said it many times, he used to get fucking arseholed on rum, you know, late at night when I was about fucking 8 years old. And he would fucking, as he was drifting off in his chair, he would tell me these fucking horrific stories. My grandmother, she gave up at what she was doing to go and be a nurse. You know? So when all the fucking burnt and maimed soldiers were coming to fucking temporary hospices and hospitals, she was out there basically doing palliative care, you know, like, because people didn't live long back then. That was my family. I mean, this is why it's ghastly to me that these modern Americans will throw this word Nazi around willy-nilly. Like, and you know, I've been called it so many times, and it's horrifying. It pisses me off. It makes me really angry, because, you know, I'm 2 generations away from people that actually fought and fucking, you know, put it all on the line to stop the actual Nazis. And this is the key point. They were defeated, you know. Like, we did win. We won. All right? Good news, everybody. We beat the actual Nazis back then. We did it through this heroic, concerted effort of the Allies. They were able to defeat them. And the idea that playing a defeated military World War II Nazi in a video game is somehow a gateway to the philosophy of the modern neo-Nazi is just so nonsensical to me. I can't believe you would even just state this as a fact, that nobody should have a lack of agency. Here's how you make the choice not to end up on the Nazi side in the game. You don't play, if you're so traumatized and you find the idea of virtual World War II Nazis, genuine historical figures, if you find that so problematic, don't play a game about World War II. Do not play a game about World War II, because the Nazis were pretty heavily featured in that conflict, from what I remember. You just don't play it. You know, you play an FPS with aliens in it, right, or whatever. There's plenty of options. But the idea that I want to play my World War II themed game, but I never want to be on the Nazi side because the Nazis of the 20s, 30s, and 40s are somehow analogous to the modern neo-Nazis in America and the alt-right, it's garbage. It's just nonsense. It is absolute nonsense.
Have a random chance of fighting for the Nazis. And we should never express that there's no meaningful difference between Nazis and Allied soldiers, or that they're functionally interchangeable. And before anyone equivocates and says not all German soldiers in World War II were Nazis, if they were wearing the swastika and are functioning as an arm of the Nazi government, then unless the game goes out of its way to tell you specifically that your particular character is not a Nazi, then they're a Nazi.
I mean, you know, I will say this, and this is probably a deeply controversial statement, but I think we actually had a lot more nuance and understanding about the nature of war and the nature of the global conflict of World War II like 10, 15, 20 years ago. Because I remember even my grandfather, who had some issues when it came to race, because I think he ended at one of his boats got sank off I don't know where it was, but he had to swim to Turkey. And he didn't have a good time when he got out there.
That's right.
I am so glad I get paid well enough.
Yes. Thank you for the sub, Gold Coast. I appreciate it. So yeah, I look, it's shameful that I can't remember the conflict. But anyway, his boat got blown up and sank, and he was one of the survivors, and he had to swim to Turkey. This was all documented, you know, when we looked into it after he died. But he told us this, you know. But I don't know. So many people just fucking would exaggerate, but actually, if anything, he downplayed a lot of his shit. Because we found the fucking Luger. You know, he had the Luger that he took off a German officer who'd killed or something. And anyway. So yeah, but he did have a problem with certain people he encountered while he was in Turkey, but I do remember he wasn't particularly hateful towards the German people after the conflict, and he had a very sort of he had a viewpoint where he was like, there were a lot of people on the German side where it was like, if you didn't fight, especially towards the end of the conflict when they were spread on two fronts in Russia. And obviously with Europe and now with America entering the war, it was if they didn't go along with it, they die. Now, obviously, it's very easy to be principled and say, well, they shouldn't have gone along with it and took the consequences. And we'd all like to fantasize that we would do that. But it's very different when you've got a totalitarian regime telling you must fucking fight. So which is not, by the way, a justification of the Nazi Party or anything they did, but there were conscripts, and it's like, I don't think there's ever been anything written, so we don't really know. Like, I couldn't give an informed opinion, but I really like to know how many German civilians, German citizens, German conscripts were totally on board with the wackadoo Hitlerian philosophy, and if you're telling me it's all of them, fine, fuck them all, I guess then. But I mean, I feel like we had a nuance and a perspective back in the day that we don't have now, and to say something like this, which is actually an indictment of real people who really fought for Germany, and it's nothing to do with video games. It's pretty fucking crazy, right?
Avid VOD, what you're here. Glad to catch a stream so I can throw some dollars your way. Keep it up, much love.
Yeah, well, thanks for the $10, dude. I'll tell you another story, because when I was down in Wales, I knew this guy called Win. And he was a really old guy. He played on my Bulls team, Mass Psychosis, and he was 92. And this is a long time ago. This is over 10 years. He's dead now, but he was 92 years old, and he was sharp as fuck. I swear to God. And he was in a fucking documentary. There was a story about him because he went to war. And he wanted to be he was a pacifist. He was from a small Welsh town. He didn't like violence. He was just a miner. He just went down the pits. He mined. He made his money and he went home, and he was a fucking, real nice religious guy. Didn't swear, didn't curse. A traditional gentleman. And he didn't want to ever kill anyone. Because he couldn't reconcile his religious beliefs with that. So him and a bunch of other people from the colliery village, they all agreed, no matter what happens, we will not kill people in the war. And I think there was a documentary about this, and he was in it. very briefly. And they pledged that they would go through the whole war and they wouldn't kill anyone. And if they survived, they would all meet up again after the war. And he told me, so one of his friends ended up in artillery, and I mean, I don't even know what to make of this right now, but he was, whenever he had to do the coordinates and fire the gun, he would fuck it up, and he was just hoping that it would miss. And then Wynn ended up on what's it called, where you're doing the supply runs, and he was running some essential supplies on a line, and they got hit with German paratroopers. And Wynn didn't keep his promise. German paratroopers dropped down. They tried to take over this supply line, take over these trucks, and Wynn fucking was in a life or death situation. He killed a German. And he hated himself for it. He couldn't cope with it at all. And it really fucked him up. He tried to get transferred out. He tried everything he could, but he stayed, and he had to fight for the rest of the war, and he didn't kill anyone else. And just as an aside, Wynn never drank. I was always trying to get him to drink, and he told me, he said he only drank once in his life, and it was when we'd won the war. He went, all the soldiers got invited into the officers' mess, and they made this punch, and he said, he goes, "Fucking hell, Richard, I don't know what was in it." Well, not fucking hell, because he never swore, but he went, "Bloody hell, Richard, I don't even know what was in it, I don't. But we all got the day off the next day because we won the war, so we had a day off the next day. The one day off we had in the army was the day after we won the war, Richard. And I spent it in bloody bed because I was so sick because of this punch." So he fucking spent his one day off work as a soldier with a fucking hangover in bed. So he was a good old boy. But there's this argument now. Like, I mean, there's probably people out there who would think what he did is actually bad, because he why wouldn't you want to kill Nazis, right? So I think we definitely had this like level of nuance and that we don't have now, right? Where it's like, not everybody in the German machinery, in the German apparatus was a Nazi. And like, yeah, I think we're fucked. I think we're so fucked in how we remember the war now and think about it. And yeah, somebody that's been around it generationally, yeah, it's really surprising me. Anyway, if I can get back into this.
In that multiplayer shooter, when it switched you to the German side, did it go out of its way to tell you that the person you're playing was pressed into service under threat of their life? Yeah, that's a big old nope. Oh, and on a similar note, let's please stop.
And I don't. Why would the game tell you that?
As well? There you are, playing your modern shooter, and all of a sudden you're a terrorist. You didn't ask for this, you didn't choose this, and yet second verse, same as the first. There it is. I mean, that's literally the name of your side in the game.
Yes.
We can do better than this.
Why do we need to? The theme of the game is to... And you have to play on both sides, by the way. So the idea that you would apply this argument to Counter-Strike shows great ignorance, because you can't opt out of being the terrorists. You would have to quit the game at half-time. You play on the counter-terrorist side and the terrorist side. And in that sense, Counter-Strike is a very morally neutral game. You don't just... And they're all real-life terrorist organizations that are in the game. If you look at them, it not only does it have like a sort of geolocated look to it, back in Counter-Strike Source, do they still do this in Go for the terrorists? I know they do it for the special forces, but they would tell you the terrorist organization's name and the atrocities that they'd committed, like in a little history. They were responsible for Black September or whatever it was. So the idea that, again, that there's any way to sort of play Counter-Strike. It's not making any moral pronouncements. It is just sort of a reflection of a real thing that happens, and it's distilled into a team-based exercise. You know, terrorists use bombs. They put bombs everywhere. So when you play as a terrorist, you know, but like, you know, 5 people trying to plant a bomb, if we remove it from reality and the awful, awful implications, yeah, it probably takes a little bit of teamwork, doesn't it? So that's good. And people are trying to stop terrorists planting bombs everywhere because people don't like bombs going off everywhere. So that takes a lot of teamwork, doesn't it, as well?
That's right.
So what's the problem?
I just got here and I don't know what this video is, but after that 10 seconds I hate it.
Oh, it gets worse. It gets worse, buddy.
Even if you put aside all of the people who have had traumatic experiences with these groups, who have lost loved ones to terrorists, or who have had generations of their families wiped out by Nazis, no one should have to put on the costume of an ideology they find abhorrent without actually opting into it in your game.
I just don't know. I don't understand the argument with this. That again, yes, you know, fucking terrorist groups are terrible, and blowing people up is bad, and we've been hit with a lot of this lately, you know, because of foreign policy. You know, there's a lot of Middle Eastern retaliatory groups that we've created, right? So what do we do, though? Because somebody somewhere has been a victim of an atrocity, that immediately takes it out of the artistic license pool. Like, we just have to fucking let that one slide.
Mainstream media in order to bring attention to an issue such as the children grooming issue on Twitch.
Oh, God, yeah. I got sent some more fucking screenshots today. Twitch haven't done fuck all about that. I don't give a fuck. It didn't blow up. It didn't go suitably viral enough. So we've still got fucking 8-year-olds streaming on Twitch while fucking thirsty pseudo-pedophiles are fucking saying unbelievable things to them, but whatever. But yeah, so, like... Fuck, if something horrible has happened ever, like, it's just gone. You just can't create a movie about it or write a book about it, or, you know, like, fucking hell. Someone should tell these guys about Sam Peckinpah's Cross of Iron, because it is a fucking World War II movie from the viewpoint of the Nazis. Like, they're fighting, that the mission they're on benefits Nazi Germany. So how the fuck, you know what I mean? Like, how the fuck are you gonna fucking, that's got to be deleted now, I guess. And here's the other thing, and I'll get into this broader point because it'll come up later. You know, he said, oh, you can't equate a British Allied soldier and a Nazi. Well, I mean, that's fair, right? But then, well, in these games, right, Counter-Strike, again, to use it as an example, what, I have to play as the fucking Americans, do I? I have to play as the CIA, do I? That's okay. That's not morally ambiguous. Apparently not. Apparently it's perfectly fine. To play as an organization that has funded coups all over the world, an organization that literally funded the elements that went on to become Al-Qaeda. So, but it's fine. It's fine. Hey, if you're playing as the CIA, you're the good guys, right? And you know, if you not only that, by the way, you do realize as well that in some parts of the world, the American military is not very well liked. The British military is not very well liked. You do realize that, right? You know, it's not like, again, it's just such a weird Western interpretation, isn't it? Like, you know, fucking the Brits are the good guys. The USA are the good guys. So, you know, if you have to play as them, that's fine. But woe betide you get put in as a historical Nazi or a terrorist group, you know. And again, I'm not talking, like, obviously, I think my views on condemning terrorism, again, imagine being a Twitch streamer and having to condemn terrorism and having to preface talking about terrorism with going, I do condemn it. What a fucking stupid world we've created. But anyway, some terrorist organizations aren't really terrorist organizations, are they? I mean, that's also a very subjective term that gets thrown around quite a bit. Some people legitimately are trying to overthrow regimes, kind of like what you're talking about, which are propped up by Western imperialist fucking interests. So it's mad. Again, this is like a child's view of the world, you know, goodies and baddies, and never play as baddies. Like, what is this? Like,
and by making people do so, we get them to stop thinking about it, to stop thinking of the meaning behind these things. We normalize them. We make them just window dressing for entertainment. Those uniforms, those symbols, become things that no longer inherently revolt us.
And again, I do not know where he's pulling this from. They become things that no longer revolt us. Why? What? Like, where are you getting that from? The idea that, you know, playing, that you cannot see the difference between, I'm playing a World War II game. I expect to see a swastika. Again, as I said, the Germans featured very prominently in that conflict, and they had that as a symbol.
Any chance of a RimWorld mod discussion anytime soon?
Yeah, I'll get onto that.
Real journalism.
But okay, so I expect to see a swastika in my World War II video game. I don't expect to see one out on a street corner. I don't expect to see a guy walking down the street waving a flag with one. Those two things are different. The latter would revolt me. If the former revolted me, I'd be mentally ill. I'd have a problem, wouldn't I? I'm going to sit down and play this World War II themed video game, right? Oh, fuck, there's Nazis in it. In World War II? Like, I don't understand the argument. I don't understand the argument. These two things are not the same. And one does not desensitize you to the other, because contextually they're so vastly different.
They reduce our visceral reaction to seeing the embodiment of these
and again, how many like just wild statements of facts in this video? Like, just they reduce our response. Do they? How? What study? What data? What are you talking about? This is something you've pulled out your ass.
Make us totally ignore the history that comes with them? No. But for some people, it moves them from the territory of revolting to just edgy. It makes scrawling a swastika on something change from unthinkable to just dangerous.
So again, if you play a World War II video game and you see swastikas in your World War II video game, for some reason in your mind, this is what's going to tip you over the edge and make you start drawing them and thinking, you know, like, I'm okay. How do you explain what's the first fucking thing you see in Minecraft? A dick or a swastika, right? Like, every time Minecraft. And why is this? Why is this? Because people have the, you know, if you are already a fucking edgelord, you're already going to do it, aren't you? It's got nothing to do with, like, well, there I was, and thinking that the Nazis were one of the most evil, reprehensible organizations ever to have existed in human history. And then I played Battlefield, and I saw a swastika, and I thought, fuck it, it's time for a Minecraft swastika dick fiesta. Like, it's just so divorced from fucking reality, man. Like,
It means you might not take iron crosses all over a website as a warning sign that you should immediately leave. And if you don't leave, you might start reading and buying into hateful ideas there.
Again, I just don't understand. Like, what is this fucking thought process here? Earlier today, I was playing Battlefield, and then I was browsing the internet, and somehow I stumbled onto a Nazi propaganda website covered in iron crosses, and I thought, yeah, this is all right, actually. I might give this a read. What the fuck, man? Where, like, where is this coming from? Like, what madness? It's just fucking crazy. Like, and it just shows as well, the people who put this video together, the people who wrote this video, they actually have no understanding whatsoever about extremism on the internet. They don't understand it. They don't know how it works. They literally think this is like how people get radicalized. Like 1 minute you're playing Battlefield, the next minute you're browsing the internet and just happen to find a radical neo-Nazi website covered in iron crosses that somehow has been allowed to exist and hasn't been fucking deleted, right, from the internet, which is now par for the course by the fucking way. And because that you played the video game earlier in the day, you go, yeah, I'm going to listen to what these Nazis have to say, actually. I've never really thought too much about their opinion, so I'm going to listen to it. And obviously in listening to it, it's so seductive for some reason. I'm just going to agree and become a Nazi. It's like, this is not how it works. It's like not how any of it works. And the idea, like, again, who are you in league with if you say video games, World War II themed video games are a path to extremist behavior, modern neo-Nazism? This is like the moral panic that's pushed by the media about it turns you into school shooters. Because if you say, well, I'm running around shooting somebody, and I guess extra credits would argue, oh, no. They don't encourage violence. But seeing a Nazi uniform in a specifically World War II themed game does encourage extremism, apparently. You can't have it both ways. You're either in league with the moral panic fucking morons, and you believe that video games, something everyone plays now, generation, there's nobody that doesn't play video games of some kind now. You either believe games cause violence and extremism, and that has to be your all-in stance because it's logically consistent, or you realize, actually, yeah, I'm probably being a little bit fucking crazy here with this idea that seeing a World War II uniform in a video game is going to lead you to seek out extremist literature and convert. It's so crazy. I have to believe that the real game plan of this video, like, they don't believe it, but they needed the virtue signal Nazis bad, which, again, everyone thinks that. It's not the debate isn't, are Nazis bad, right? That's never been the debate. They always frame it that way. They always go, "Oh, look, if you support free speech, it's, you know, why are you so concerned about Nazis having access to free speech?" Well, I'm not. I'm just concerned about everyone having access to it. Oh, why are you supporting the Nazis? No. No one supports the Nazis. Right. What we don't believe is that everyone is a Nazi if they disagree with you. That's the debate. The debate isn't, what shall we do with the Nazis? Because I think we all agree this is what we'd like to do with the Nazis. The problem is, you say everyone's a Nazi, and you say things like playing video games will turn you into a Nazi, which is nonsense. So now we have a problem because we can't get tough with the Nazis, can we? Because to you, somebody that, like, disagrees, wait till you see the reaction from their editors, by the way. Someone who disagrees with this extra credits video is a Nazi or a Nazi apologist or alt-right or whatever. So we can't put you in charge of the great consensus about what we'll do with the Nazis because you think everyone's a fucking Nazi. So it would just be, well, the prisons are overflowing. Oh, they criminalized marijuana again. No, we just let the fucking progressives, we just let the woke brigade decide, you know, it's a mandatory life sentence for being a Nazi, and we just let them decide who is and isn't one. And lo and behold, 50% of the world's population is now in a fucking prison because real tame viewpoints will make you a Nazi these days.
That's right.
It's
Cheers, Lewis,
berserk.
Lewis Sam Sound.
It seems like such a small and simple thing, but it's things like this that erode our safeguards against dangers we sacrifice so much to fight. By the time you've played 100 hours of being a Nazi, their voice stabs become memes and in-jokes with your friends. By the 1,000th time you've respawned as a terrorist, you're either celebrating them or making fun of them.
fucking come on. Oh, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? Who has ever fucking... Right, think about how many hours down the fucking years. I'm putting, like, all the years I've been playing Counter-Strike, all the years I've been doing Counter-Strike themed content, all the years I've been hosting Counter-Strike events. Not once, not once have I ever said, like, yeah, that Al-Qaeda's all right, actually. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just not once. Like, have I ever fucking, for a second, said that? Like, not once have I ever thought, yeah, you know what we need? More suicide bombers, actually. Yeah, they're pretty fucking radical. Like, you know, it's just never... Yeah, it's so ridiculous. I can't believe it. Like, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. And, you know, again, they're being totally genuine here. They're being totally genuine here. That they think by the 1000th time you've respawned as a... wait, I can actually turn my bass up. And my voices can really take on a... Is this the bass? Oh, fuck, that's no. Right. That's a bit too bassy. But, yes, terrorists, yeah, because you've respawned 1,000 times as a terrorist, they're great now. Love them. Love, you know, and again, like, I don't know where they're pulling this from. Is there a study? Is there something? Is there something that backs this video up? There isn't. There's nothing.
Neither of which helps the global crisis we have that takes thousands of lives every year. So what do? That's easy. Don't make them morally equivalent. Don't make there be no in-game moral difference between your Nazis and your allies, between your terrorists and your counter-terrorist squads. Frame PvP as a training exercise, or simply take one of your non-odious sides and recolor them so that it's red versus blue, rather than Axis versus allies.
Yeah, you're right. I think what we should do is we should remove every problematic conflict ever in the history of the world, and we should say, you know what, actually, we just can't have video games themed about that, and we should just play Splatoon, and that's it, really. There's no point in having any adult-themed video games anymore, because, you know, there's just too much moral ambiguity about it all. You know, you can't make the Nazis morally equivalent. I mean, they're not even doing that, really. You know, when I said about Counter-Strike that there's like a moral equivalent, it's in the sense that it's morally no, sorry, I didn't say moral equivalence. I said morally neutral, because you are both terrorist and counter-terrorist. There is no moral equivalence. It's very clear that when you're on the terrorist side, it's bad, and when you're on the counter-terrorist side, it's good. So they're not morally equivalent in that sense, but it's morally balanced in that you play as both. So just fucking bizarre. Team Red and Blue forever.
A good example of a game that does this is Rainbow Six Siege. All of your bomb diffusion and hostage rescue multiplayer with no normalizing terrorists. In fact, by having all of the characters as counter-terrorists training for a possible threat, it highlights how real and present of a threat that is. And if you decide that you need to have both sides be playable, don't make them interchangeable. Don't have players randomly spawn in as one or the other. Allow players to choose which side they're on.
And this is crazy as well, because to make this argument, you're sort of admitting that the previous argument you made is gibberish, because you're saying, oh, well, let them choose. Well, hang on, right? According to you, if you play as exclusively as Nazis, you're more likely to become radicalized in real life. So what we should probably do is anybody who willingly picks to play as a Nazi, let's just skip to the end, shall we? Let's just fucking immediately kick them off the server, ban them from the game, and just have a warning going, sorry, we don't support Nazis in our game. Fuck you. Fuck you. And then fly in the re-education police immediately, straight to their house, give their IP over to the government. Just get rid of them, because if your argument's accurate, right, then the only people who would want to play as the Nazis or the terrorists are people who have sympathetic leanings to Nazis or terrorists, or are people that don't see a problem with it and are therefore likely to become radicalized. We should just we should just immediately kick them off the game. Like, in fact, the whole game should now just be, it's not about an FPS. It's not about fighting each other. It's just good versus evil simulator. That's what it is. The real game is, will you press the right button? Will you side with the good people? If you don't, then fuck you. We'll just ban you from the internet.
Now, of course, this has all sorts of in-game problems, such as creating shorter wait times for fascists, but you know what? Those wait times could be artificially extended.
Wait, what? What? I didn't even notice that the first time around. So if you you can't remember this cunt. So he's.
You're not even a real journalism. That's right.
Thank you, Alchemist, for the gifted subs, buddy. It's good to see you. Swinging by. So
You're
hang
not
on,
even
right?
Real journalism.
He's literally saying, that you shouldn't pick because it's
You're not
bad,
even a real
but
journalism.
really the problem is if you're made to be one of the bad guys, and it's okay if you have a pick, but because
You're not even a real journalism.
because he thinks less people would
That's
pick
right.
the Nazis, it would actually act as a reward to people who are actual in real life fascists. I
You're not
can't
even a real
believe it.
journalism.
I can't believe he
That's
said that. Like, you're a fascist because you picked to play as the Nazis in
You're
a
not even a
World
real
War II
journalism.
themed game. You're an actual real life
That's
fascist
right.
now.
Now, of course, this has all sorts of in-game problems, such as creating shorter wait times for fascists, but you know what? Those wait times could be artificially extended.
And we gotta punish them! We gotta punish them! We have to punish them! If you want to play as a Nazi in a World War II themed video game, you must be punished for it. We'll give you the choice, but we will actually punish you for it. We will actually punish you for it. Because again, we're too fucking dumb to realize historical neo-Nazis in a contextual setting. Sorry, actual Nazis, World War II Nazis in a historical setting versus real-life modern neo-Nazism. And just, of course, worth adding, one's in a game, one's real life. These things are not the same. So you have to be punished for playing as 50% of the content.
If it meant players had an active choice in what teams they would represent, if you're saying we need people playing Nazis in our games. And if you're going to say, but we need it for historical reasons, then your game better actually be historical. You can't really just hide behind the fact you called your desert map El Alamein and say, but it's historical. If that were the case, you need your PvP
You're not even a
to
real
at least
journalism.
represent real historical events and
That's
be a
right.
realistic take on those battles. Once you make both sides balanced, it's also no longer historical. And you can't really say that you need Nazis anymore for historical accuracy. Oh, and once you let players get cool weapons that weren't actually at that particular...
Sorry. So, right. So if you now have any reenactment of a battle from a war, and you make it so the side that historically lost can win, the game isn't
You're not even
historically
real
accurate
journalism.
anymore, and therefore there's no need to have the evil people in the video game to begin with. Fuck me, dude. It's so fucking far out there. You know, I didn't even realize how bad this video was. Like, 'cause I watched it and I knew it was bad. There's something unhinged about this, about the arguments you're presenting. They don't have any logical consistency at all. It's fucking so wild. Like,
battleground, it's also no longer historically accurate. And you can't declare that your game will suffer if you don't put players in the jackboots of the Third Reich. And once your map is something carefully designed to have good gameplay by a team in a room in San Francisco or LA, and it's not a faithful reconstruction of the actual places the historical events occurred in, you can no longer say we need to have players take up arms in service of terror or hate. And look, we're not saying we can't have games about World War II or about terrorism.
Okay.
We're not even saying we shouldn't make games where you play.
You are saying that we should punish the people who choose to play them, though. So, just throwing that out there. You can totally have them. Yeah, you can totally have them. But, we'll have to put you on a list. And we'll have to increase your queue times. And, why stop there? We'll have to fuck up your social credit score as well, right?
Play as a Nazi or a terrorist. But what we are saying is that the fact that you're playing as a Nazi or a terrorist in a game has to mean something. And it can't just be a skin. It can't be something that a game randomly drops you into. And really, if we are saying anything in this episode, it's this. Games can do better. And in this particular case, it's not even that hard to do better. And it's no more costly to do better. All it requires is that we in the game industry be cognizant of the world around us.
Yeah, let's start with fucking history, shall we, you fucking demented cunt? Let's actually start there. Let's actually start and acknowledge that the World War II Nazis and modern neo-Nazism, they're not the same. And putting a fucking Nazi in a game about World War II isn't the same as having a real-life neo-Nazi out on the fucking streets doing neo-Nazi fucking shit. Can we start with that? Let's start there. And all it takes is us in the games industry, the woke people in the games industry, and we can do better. We'll just eradicate all of the bad stuff that ever happened. You can't mention it. You can't include it in your art. Unless it's, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because, if it's a single player game, no problem. I mean, well, actually, for all the fucking dog whistling that went around the Wolfenstein marketing campaign, they were fine with that. But even now, like single player campaigns, even with Nazi characters in, it's like nope. I think didn't I see something recently on to do with the Call of Duty, where was it Battlefield? But like they actually put like a real Nazi, like a historical Nazi figure in. And they had to remove it and change the name. I think so. It was Battlefield, yeah. So, what do you do with that? Like, now we can't. It's like there's just no point in even acknowledging any of that. Like, just World War II FPSs has just got to go, I guess. And then the terrorist stuff, yeah. I mean. They're not harping on about that so much, but sure, we just can't have any mention of terrorism either. I guess it's just too much. It's verboten.
And what these symbols we're drawing on mean that we think as we're building, not just about the game we're working on, but about the world as a whole. If we can do that, we can take a big step forward for the industry.
And again, guys, the defeated Nazis of World War II. They don't play any part in the world. They're all dead. They're all dead. Even the ones who got away to Argentina are dead now. So, what do you think's happening? What do you think's happening? It's so fucking insane.
We can stop helping to normalize Nazis.
You're not even a real journalism. That's right.
Please, Mr. Games Industry, stop me from playing a fictional character in a fictional representation of history in a game of video format that I chose to buy.
So, again, fucking the argument that it's normalizing Nazis, it just isn't. And modern Nazis, World War II Nazis, historical setting, history, context, all that stuff, it's just all gone. But it's definitely worth pointing out that they literally didn't explore any of the issues of playing the American military, in modern military games, in playing, just characters in general. Like, okay, what about, fucking Friday the 13th? I'm playing as Jason Voorhees and I'm killing women. I'm killing female characters with a machete. I'm guessing they don't like women being murdered, right? So, is that okay? Like, and if so, why isn't that desensitizing me to being a serial killer? Because again, I'm following your argument. I'm going to follow the extra credits argument, and if I play any game of any morally objectionable content, then it's actually desensitizing me to resisting the urge to do it in reality. That's what they're saying. That because you play as a Nazi in a video game 1 minute and the next minute you go into those radical websites. Well,
all right, guys, we need to delete CSGO. No more tournaments.
But if I'm playing as a serial killer, then next I'm looking up how to get rid of bodies, aren't I, on the internet? I mean, I must be. That's how it works, right? I mean, that's what extra credits are telling me. So, yeah, Grand Theft Auto, that's got to go because, if I'm playing as a 3-tiered storyline of organized crime, I'm probably more likely to go out and steal a car and start working for the mob. Probably. I'm probably going to start looking up how to do it, actually, on the internet. So, the argument is just so fucking flawed on every level. And again, why do it? Why do you have to say this, like, with no data? No, it's not like, well, a new study came out and let's talk about what it means. It's just literally, here is some garbage we've imagined, and we're putting it out there just to basically say, like, we don't like Nazis. Again, no one likes Nazis. No one. So, yeah, there's this pinned comment that they put on that we'll get into this. That's interesting. You show Battlefield 1, which is a World War I game, and said that the Germans were Nazis. Now, you see, that's a good point as well, right? Because the Nazis weren't in World War I. It was just the Germans. It was just the, Austro-Hungarian fucking alliance or whatever it was. So, are they just as bad? Is it okay to play as a German in World War I? Because they were still trying to take over the world, and that's not cool. Just saying. Always thought it was an interesting fact. The first British troops deployed in World War I were deployed to Iraq, I think. Because they wanted to stop the Berlin-Baghdad railway and the oil supply lines. So, anyway, little interesting too. It's almost as if there's been a consistent war for oil. And we just teach these elements of history as like being, oh yeah, and then we fought those baddies and totally secured a bunch of oil fields while we were over there doing that. And then we fought these baddies, and then, oh yeah, and we had to secure the poppy fields and the oil fields. Why wouldn't we? And we had to set up in the 50s ICI, right, which we did by overthrowing somebody in Iraq and installing fucking Saddam Hussein or whatever it was. Anyway, fuck. Oh, it's ridiculous. So I guess it's okay to play as Germans in World War I because they're not Nazis. So even though they were still trying to take over the world and were still killing people, because they weren't doing it on the ideology of racial purity, superiority, and a manifest destiny, it's totally okay. So, what else have we got here? Good thing I saw this in time. I was just about to invade Poland when you guys totally made me see how wrong that might be. Thanks a bunch. Playing a video game in the era where Nazis was a real threat isn't normalizing Nazis. Calling people Nazis when they clearly aren't is normalizing Nazis. Oof, that's good. That's a good one. You got him, Eric. You got him. Hi there. Came here to downvote. Fought Al-Qaeda in real life and played as them in a video game. Never once thought of taking up arms with them to kill infidels. Because that's another thing. What about all the American veterans that are playing games? It's like they come, they do their bit. They did a tour, 2 tours of Iraq. They come back and like, playing Counter-Strike. Yeah, fuck it. You know what? I feel bad about all of the fucking terrorists that blew up now. Feel bad. I was on the wrong team. Right, but anyway, this pinned fucking comment is just fucking outrageous. Hey, folks. So this one seems to have struck a nerve. No, it didn't strike a nerve. It's just your audience recognized it as being unfathomably stupid. It didn't strike any nerves. It's just really dumb. It's just really dumb. We encourage discussion about the topic. They've been deleting comments, of course. And there is some fair criticism of the video out there. However, I wanted to address some of the comments that seem to have misunderstood some aspects of the video. 1, we never said that playing as a Nazi turns you into a Nazi. That's not how that works. That's not how any of this works. Why do they always have to talk in fucking cliches? No, you didn't say that. What you did say was that if you play as a Nazi repeatedly, it would desensitize you, and then if you stumbled across Nazi propaganda, you wouldn't see it as objectionable and were more likely to become radicalized. That's what you did say, and that's a ridiculous premise. There is plenty of research about how art and media can shift people's perspectives. This is not a good or bad thing. This is just a natural effect of culture. Please look up the Overton window, or heck, you can watch our video on propaganda games over here. I'd rather not. So no, playing a Nazi doesn't magically transform you into a Nazi. No one is saying that. No, it's just you said it makes you more likely. You said it makes you more likely to become one if you were exposed to Nazi content. We never said that games should never let you play as Nazis or terrorists for that matter. If you need the exact timestamp, it's at 4:47. There's a lot. Okay, here's what you did say. You said that if people did want to play as Nazis in these games, they should be penalized, so not to be incentivized, because only the fascists would want to do that. You also said that if a game lets you play as a Nazi, there should be a reason for doing so. And I have no idea what that reason is. Like, what should it be? Like some deep... Is this an acceptable premise for a game? You start out as a Nazi, and you're doing evil Nazi things, and then over the course of doing the Nazi thing, you realize Nazi bad, and then you become a Nazi who kills Nazis, kind of like Dexter, right? Would that be an okay thing for a game? You're saying in this video it would be. I suspect if somebody made that game, you would be in fucking conniptions. You would be up in fucking arms about it. There's no fucking way you would be okay with that. No fucking way. Because that would have to imply that Nazis were capable of redemption. And we definitely couldn't have that, could we? So yes, that would have to that would be absolute, again, verboten. You couldn't make that game. So what type of fucking stories can you tell? You can't tell any. Right, where was it? It can't be done. Right. Oh, wait. There's a lot of potential for some really interesting or impactful games that put a player in the boots of people or in control of systems that have done incredible harm. But it can't be done thoughtlessly or just as a skin on top of mechanics devoid of context. There's a pretty big context in all of the games that you were condemning, and that context is that they're set in World War fucking II. Like, how much more context do you need for Nazis being in the game? Like, beyond that, you know? So ridiculous. For those saying that it's just a game and we shouldn't think too hard about it, I feel like perhaps it might be important to introduce ourselves. Oh my god, you condescending cunts. Hi, we're Extra Credits. Our tagline for a very long time was because games matter. It's something we fundamentally believe, and if you don't, that's okay. But then and games. So wait, what? What happened? Oh, did we time out for a little bit? Oh, okay. Anyway, as I was saying, yeah, sorry, I was in, in my speech. So the right. So the neo-Nazis exist, but let's just assess history of Nazism 101, very brief. You had the Nazis in Germany that rose to power, the only time they ever had institutional power historically in any nation, right? And they were defeated by a global coalition to shut them down. The reverberations of that ideology and its foulness, once it was all laid bare and we all knew the facts and details of the Holocaust were coming out and everything else, was that the country that effectively it was born from was so ashamed internationally that the reverberations are still felt to this day about what you can and can't show in art. I think they'd only recently just changed the laws about fucking showing uniforms and all of that stuff. So then after that, there was breakaway groups of racists and lunatics that wanted to kind of try and get it going again. Never had any power. Always just fucking, the lowest of the low, the dregs, just boot boys, looking for fights, looking for trouble, going out, attacking immigrants, the usual shit. And that's pretty much where we're at now, except they are greatly diminished. In fact, the entire fucking the whole idea of what is acceptable political thought now is skewed so radically to the left that people are terrified of even being nationalist these days. You can't even say, hey, I'm a nationalist, I love my country. People, oh, that's fucking racist, isn't it? Because if you love your country, and there's kind of an implication you like it better than others, and that if you're from that nation, you're better than others, and that's racism, isn't it? So you're basically a racist now. So it's fucking skewed so fucking far. Wait. Guys, you're tripping me out here. People are still typing as if the stream went out again. But anyway, so the idea that there's somehow this environment that's become a catalyst for modern neo-Nazism to thrive is absurd. It's absurd. And again, I don't think the numbers would be bore out if anyone ever did a comprehensive study. We've seen an increase in hate crimes, correct, but nowhere near the highest it's been in America. Nowhere near, and that's with more hate crimes being reported as a percentage. So they think with better avenues for reporting hate crimes. With fake hate crimes, that it's weird. They never get took out of the statistics, and there's a lot of those. And people go, "Oh, it's just 0.005." It's no. I mean, nobody's actually done a comprehensive study into it. The one study we had counted something unreal, fucking 400 fake hate crimes. Which, when you consider in America, over the course of a year, there's something like 5,600, something like that. Maybe and it fluctuates. It's been as low as 4,000, 3,000 a year. It's been as high as 7,000, 8,000 in various periods during the Bush administration. I think it spiked because sentiment towards Muslims after 9/11 led to a spike in hate crimes. The idea that that 400, 500 false hate crimes isn't a significant dent in 5,000 is ridiculous. So I do not believe for a fucking second. I do not believe for a second that like there's this rise of like neo-Nazism. I think if anything, it's just a label that gets thrown about more often. But anyway, neo-Nazis have always existed, but they've never had any power. They would never have the means to seize power. They have no political power, no political influence. Anybody who has even been vaguely connected to anyone else who's been vaguely connected to Nazis is sort of cast out of political life. So I don't really understand what point they're trying to make here about neo-Nazis existing. It's like, I don't think you'll ever get rid of racism and racist assholes. I don't think that's ever going to be a fixable problem. But what we do have currently is a society, certainly in America and the United Kingdom, that is the most progressive and forward-thinking it's ever been. That avenues for people that hold these reprehensible views are routinely shut off, even in ways that could be deemed problematic, but they're not a very sympathetic victim. So whatever. And I actually think this ideology has been widely defeated across the board. So I don't know. That's my perspective based on looking at the numbers. Anyway, we live in a time where neo-Nazis exist, and they seem to have increasingly found a home in gaming communities. And it's like, no, they haven't. They just haven't. There's not been any comprehensive proof. Those articles, by the way, that were what was it? White supremacists are using Fortnite to radicalize people. There was so many flaws in that article, and it got fucking really debunked by a lot of journalists that were like going, well, that's not right, and that's not right, and that's not right. So no, they haven't increasingly found a home in gaming communities. If they have, show me where and how, and what's the evidence for making that statement? This isn't something we can turn a blind eye to anymore, and it's important to consider what we as game designers can do to try and make things better. As said, there have been some very valid critiques of the video that we greatly appreciate. You don't appreciate critique, let's be honest. Parrot the same fucking thoughts, parrot the same philosophy, believe everything we believe, whole cloth, or you are bad. That is where we're at right now with progressive ideology. Most important to us is to start talking about these topics and to have conversations. Of course, the old, we got it wrong, we read the room wrong, everyone said it was shit, but we did start a conversation. So we're the real winners, guys, because we started the conversation. The conversation that has never gone away, the conversation everyone is sick of because it is such a one-sided conversation to have. It's just like, hey, what are we going to do about Nazis? Well, nobody likes them. Nobody supports them. They're like super small. They have like no institutional power. They're being deplatformed en masse everywhere where they're exposed. You can't even they can't use Airbnb for fuck's sake. Like it's like, what do you want? Like, is this not what utter defeat looks like? Is this not what utter defeat looks like? They can't even have fucking bank accounts. They're fucked. Their lives are over. All they will have is their fucking basement-dwelling, incel-driven, racist nonsense to increasingly share in person with all the other fucking losers, and that's it. That's their lives now. We won. The Nazis are done. Like, neo-Nazis are done. Fuck, I don't understand, like. I just don't understand where you're pulling this shit from. And then they end the comment with saying, oh, wow, I want to watch more videos about politics and games from Extra Credit. It's a literal 9 years of talking about politics and games. Well, then we got the perfect playlist for you. Check out just a delightful handful of the videos we've made before about this type of subject. Again, people aren't saying that they don't want you talking about politics. They just don't want you saying ridiculous things like playing a fucking World War II themed game with someone in a fucking Nazi skin will desensitize you to modern neo-Nazi thought. It's just not fucking true. This is not true. So, what was the other thing I had to do with this? Oh yeah, there was. I knew there was something else I missed out. So obviously, I talked a little bit before this about how Extra Credits had sort of slandered Total Biscuit and basically said that he was part of the problems in Gamergate, and they just made up some absolute fabrication. So there was also this on Twitter, by the way, about like again just the smug. How, oh, fuck, what's going on here? Oh, no, XSplit, no. No. Have you done that thing again? Oh, no. Right, don't worry, I got it. Where... This was the community manager saying, I don't think people seem to understand that. One, we fully expect this to happen every time we've uploaded a games or political video. And it's like, well, that's not true because the vast majority of your content seems to be about that. And you seem to have done pretty well for yourself. You have 2.1 million subscribers. I'm guessing a lot of people actually enjoy your content. And that too, we love losing all the bigoted subscribers. So if you watch this video and it was so shit, and again, you guys have watched it with me. You guys have watched it with me and seen how bad it is. And just how ridiculous the premises are. And if you then were like, well, that's enough for me. I can't do another Extra Credits video, honestly. This one is really like just made me think that I can't go on supporting their work. And if you then decide to unsubscribe, you're a bigot. You're a bigot because obviously you are secretly supporting Nazism by unsubscribing from Extra Credit. This is what I mean about the threshold. The threshold of what is Nazism these days is ridiculous. And the word bigot gets thrown around, and the word Nazi gets thrown around, and the term alt-right gets thrown around. And it's actually so self-defeating, because if you hate these groups, if you hate actual bigots, and you hate actual Nazis, and you hate the alt-right, as any reasonable person should, then all you're doing is, by sort of constantly crying wolf about them and saying, yeah, unsubscribe from Extra Credits, you're a bigot, you support Nazis, all you're doing is all the people that would like rally to the cause of standing up when real instances occur are just like, they're so fucking played out with it. They're just like bored. They're like, oh, who were the Nazis today? Oh, what, people who didn't support America's, the American female football team not wanting to go to the fucking White House. All the people who said, yeah, we're sick of your grandstanding, your virtues. They're the Nazis today, are they? Yep, they're the literal Nazis. And people are just fucking like, well, I kind of feel everyone's a Nazi by your standards, so I'm just going to tap the fuck out on the whole debate. You actually create an environment where people are just... There is the real desensitization that's going on. When you constantly misuse a term, and people are just like, you know what? Like, does anyone even know what the fucking alt-right is in these circles? Does anyone even know? Because I just see... The dreaded alt-right, and it's like, okay, well, who's the alt-right? Well, people who support Joe Biden. You're like, fucking hell. I actually saw arguments being made on various subreddits that I browsed to just fucking kill my brain cells, and people were saying like, oh, Joe Biden is Republican. Joe Biden. Now listen, I'm not saying he's not a traditional politician with a lot of views and would certainly do well for, you know, special interest groups in America and everything else. He is in no way a Republican. Like, so many of his views is non-compatible with the Republican Party. I get it. He's not Bernie. I get it. He's creepy as fuck. But to say that Joe Biden is like in line with like the Republican Party is fucking crazy. And again, I say that as somebody who absolutely loathes Joe Biden. But then again, you know, the term Republican seems to have become a pejorative. You know, it was for me for many years. I'm not so sure anymore, frankly. But yeah, fucking, it's just crazy. It's just crazy, and people are tapping out. People are tapping out. That like to dislike ratio on that fucking video is insane. Like, it's got 500,000 views and 152,000 dislikes, and you're saying less bigotry is great, dislikes are still engagement. I don't think anybody creates anything that they intentionally want people to fucking dislike that much. Like, I've done videos where, you know, I knew I was holding an unpopular opinion. Like when I said, hey, the Facebook deal's good for the esports industry. I knew I was going to get slammed for that. I'm trying to think what else. What were my big fucking downvotes? Oh, the Sargon stuff. Every time I criticize Sargon of Akkad, there's elements of my audience who are like, no, Sargon is a genius and it's all part of his incredible plot. And it's like, fucking come on, man. Like, what's it going to take for you to fucking realize he's an idiot? He's an egotistical idiot. At what point is the penny going to drop? And I knew I was going to get slammed for that. Right? And it's fine. It's fine. But I don't intentionally say this stuff like thinking, haha, I will trigger everybody. It's weird as well because they always say like, oh, it's the right wing. Oh, you want to trigger the libs. You want to trigger the libs. This is, right, dislikes are still engagement. We love losing bigoted subscribers is basically the left's let's trigger the libs. It's pathetic. The culture war, it's just fucking gone to shit, guys. It's just gone to shit. It's just not even worth fighting. Like everyone, like the fucking nonsense. There's no values being applied here. You know, you see like fucking right-wing guys and they go, oh, look at the lefty snowflakes, and then somebody says, yeah, Ivanka Trump is a feckless cunt, and they go, how can you say this about the precious first lady of America? Samantha Bee should be thrown off television. Well, who's the fucking triggered snowflakes now, you silly bastards? It's fucking garbage, isn't it? It's just so dumb. It's like, you can laugh at the fucking screeching hysterics of the Blue Hair Brigade, but, you know, it's just as fucking embarrassing to see these, like, fucking 20-year-olds dressed like they're fucking in Mad Men, like 50-year-old fucking boomer suits on, because they think this makes them look like respectable conservatives, and they're like, you know, I'm 20, but I talk like I'm fucking 50, because this is what's happening, and you're the real racists because you're pigeonholing me, and I'm black, and I should be allowed to fucking think what I think, and I'm only saying this because it makes me stand out in a crowd, and I'd be pretty ordinary and fucking banal, but so fuck, it's just so fucking exhausting. It's just so fucking exhausting.
Right.
All of these fucking frauds.
Love you long time.
These fucking frauds. It's just pathetic. Anyway. So yeah, the extra credit video sucked. Oh god, I can't fucking believe this. Can't believe XSplit's fucking gone. Doolally, as they used to say, which is probably a problematic phrase. But yeah, anyway, there was just the other thing that I just wanted to add. So obviously, James Portnow from Extra Credit got accused of some fucking weird shit. Of like using his position to sort of gain sexual fucking relationships with fucking one of the people who work there. Oh, hang on. Fuck that right above me. Yeah, the reason it's Expert's done that thing where the fucking box is fucking grayed out. Its box is literally gone. I made it watch an extra credits video and its box is gone. So I gotta do this. But see, look, this is why I left extra credits. This is why I cut people out of my life. I trusted a few enough to reach to them for help. And while some tried, no one could change anything. The man who holds all the cards controls the situation, and James Port now holds all the cards. After our romantic relationship ended, he turned my working life into a living nightmare. Like, why are they always fucking weird, sexually controlling, pseudo-incel creeps? Like, why? Like, why? It's just fucking, like... Please, can we just have some new script writers in for reality for a bit, please? So it's not just all so fucking predictable and tiresome. After our romantic relationship ended, he turned my working life into a living nightmare. Work was used as a lever to try and make me spend time with him again, so we could maintain the illusion of friendship even while he tortured me. Ever wonder why he stopped doing lies? I'm guessing that's one of their series or something. He attacked me for it repeatedly. I was letting the company down by not doing lies with him because lies was better with me in it. Was that a compliment? I tried to tell him that I needed time and space and to tell him that these demands were hurting me. He flipped it. He told me that I was being the aggressor, that I couldn't let things go, that I was hurting him, that I was constantly attacking him, and it wasn't fair. And at the time, I feared that he was right. Maybe I was petty. Maybe I was mean. Maybe I was being unfair. Then one day, he exploded. A work email where we disagreed was suddenly cause for him to accuse me of lying, with manipulating facts, and trying to make him look bad. But he'd asked for my opinion, and my opinion was that I disagreed. I restated my case. I asked to be recused. He did not recuse me. He came after me, first in a private email telling me all the places where I'd supposedly lied, then in private messages demanding that I meet him the next day, and as always, painting himself as the victim. He was so hurt. He was so tired. How could I do this? I said no. I told him to stop talking. He kept talking. I asked to get a mediator involved in the situation, fast spiraling out of control. He kept talking. I told him again, stop talking. He kept talking. It's just like that video, isn't it? You wanted it to stop, but it just kept on going. So I blocked him. Did it stop there? No. He sent me an email to get around the block. Same plea, same story. He was so tired. He only wanted peace. Please come meet with him. And I said no. I said stop. He emailed me again. I said this is harassment. So he emailed someone else asking them to pass on a message to me. This behavior never stopped. This man never apologized. I turned in my resignation and left the company quickly, quietly, desperate to get out. You'd think that would have been the end of it, but you'd be wrong there too. James started telling the other contractors, my former co-workers, that I had committed a fireable offense. He painted himself as a hero who graciously allowed me to resign, even though I was so terrible, and painted my last paycheck as a concession that he gave. He reshaped extra credits around himself, stacking it with friends who did not see or would not question his behavior, and driving out the few who did. Wonder why so many people left in such a hurry? Whoops, that's why. This man has made a career out of being a progressive voice in video games. He was featured in the New York Times for speaking out against harassment. And yet, he harassed me out of a job. He spread lies about me after I left. There's your extra credits. There's your James Port now. There's my truth finally about the way I left and why. I've got receipts, but I won't be sharing them today. But my silence, my complicity, it's done. So, interesting, isn't it? Because, you know, playing a video game as a set in World War II that has Nazis in is more likely to make you susceptible to Nazi propaganda. Well, then, if you're working with a weird, sexually aggressive harasser of women at your company and you're perfectly fine with that, doesn't that make you more likely for that fucking poisonous, toxic behavior to sort of seep into your pores? So it's weird, isn't it, how this sort of you know, moral sermonizing and grandstanding works, right? But they're all, you know, every time. It's every time. You know, there's, I hate that reset the clock meme. I hate it. I hate the way that it trivializes victims of sexual assault, bullying. I hate it. I hate the meme. But there's an element of truth in it that you just can't get away from. And that is that it's just every fucking time. It's just every time. If people spend their entire life preaching about how they're great because of their great views and how bad you are because your views differ, there's something wrong with these fucking people. Like 90% of the time, there's something wrong with these people. And I can't play a World War II fucking video game because it might make me more susceptible to being a Nazi, but you can work with an actual fucking predator. That's fine. That's just fine. That's perfectly fine. We can make money working for a fucking company with a guy who harasses women. By the way, Gamergate bad. Okay, yep, good. Got it. Got the fucking memo. You've done it again, guys. You've done it again. You couldn't even hold your principles. Your principles of not harassing women in gaming. You couldn't even stick to that principle, and you had to work with somebody that's done it. Fine, fine. It's all fine. There's not a problem here. Lord.